The facts are that this city's burning down and we're decreasing fire protection. I don't say we, the mayor's decreasing fire protection. And it shouldn't be done. We need to at least hold our own. Because we felt that with the remaining companies, they could more than adequately handle the loss of those two companies.
And you feel that the people in these neighborhoods are not going to get less fire protection?
Absolutely.
On Channel 17 Reports this week, we'll examine the red-hot issue involving cutbacks in the Buffalo Fire Department, which is raging between city officials and the men who put their lives on the line fighting the city's fires. And we'll explore the decisions to close down 2 firehouses, shrink the ranks of battalion chiefs, dismantle fire call boxes, and reduce the taxes that help pay for fire protection. The long-simmering feud between the 1,050-member Buffalo Firefighters Local 282 and the Griffin administration heated up this past week on several fronts. The most critical issue was the closing of Engine 18 at 1030 Fillmore Avenue and Engine 30 at 131 Southside Parkway. Whose decision was it to close the 2 firehouses and why?
Right here. My decision.
Why?
Because we want to reorganize the fire department as we're reorganizing the licenses and inspections in the Department of Transportation. With the advice of Fred Langdon, we found that we could do without the 2 firehouses as we did without Engine 8 about 2 years ago. And this is an administrative decision. I'm responsible for it, and I make the decisions.
Why wasn't the council notified of this prior to your decision?
Because it's not their decision, it's mine. They weren't notified when Engine 8 was closed either. I'm outraged that this was done. It was an unnecessary thing to do at this time, and I feel that it was done without any knowledge or input of the Common Council, and it really shouldn't have been done. After all, taxes were raised to provide this service and to keep those companies open. We were assured by the administration at budget time, during budget hearings, that if we provided the utility tax increase and provided the budget which the mayor asked for, that there would be no reductions in fire service and that no firehouses would be closed. And those turned out to be empty promises, as you know, because engines 18 and 30 have been closed in the 5th Battalion. Let me say that aside from the constitutional problems which I have with it, the real problem is that I don't think that my neighborhood, I'll speak for my neighborhood, is as well protected from the ravages of fire as it was a couple of weeks ago when engine 30 was open.
I hate to see that station go. I think it was a good station. 50% of the calls were what they call for first aid. In my district, in my area, where the station was closed, I would say a good 70% of the people are senior citizens. And I feel that was a good point of having a station out there where they could respond immediately to majority of the, to the elderly especially. And I thought that was a very good station to have out there. I don't deny that we didn't have many false alarms, but what station doesn't?
I could say I wasn't surprised. I knew something was coming on the closing of the houses, but I think he is stepping too far out of his boundaries by making these moves, and all he's doing is making the firefighters a little more hostile toward him. The 2 closings, I think, right now were not called for.
City officials feel that the closing of these houses will save money and add more money to the budget.
Well, that's his excuse for closing them, but he's costing the city money. Mayor Griffin's got one bad interpretation of the fire department. He believes when a fireman is not out that he is costing the city money. The truth of the matter is, when a fireman is not out, he is making the city money. Because when a fireman is not fighting a fire, he is not taking a piece of property off the tax rolls. He's keeping it there and it's increasing the tax rolls.
We looked at the reduced housing stock in the city. This administration has torn down a little over 2,900 buildings in the last 4 years that were derelict and fire hazards, and it's 2,500 or 2,900 times that we won't have to respond to a fire in them particular buildings. The reduced population since the last census was part of it. The reduced responses, the first aid calls have been reduced by 6,000 a year since we put in the change in the responses from the squad vehicles to the pumpers. And the anticipated reduction in responding to false alarms, which we had 10,000 last year, just under 10,000 false alarms. We anticipate we can eliminate 80% of them, if not more.
Would the reduction of the firehouses from 25 to 23 sacrifice the levels of fire protection in Buffalo?
Not one bit. Those locations will be covered by the other engines in the area. For instance, engine 18, the district will be covered by engines 21, 33, 3, 22, and 31. And engine 30's district will be covered by 4, 25, 35, and 32. No letdown in fire protection whatsoever. Engine 30 totaled 443 hours of work time in 1981. With engine 30 closed, the 3 remaining companies would have a total of approximately 2.7 hours increase in workload per week. And that's less than 1 hour per platoon. With engine 18 closing, they had a total of 1,023 hours of work time in 1981. And that came out to 1 hour and 20 minutes per platoon. So, you know, that's why the reasons why we closed them, because we felt that with the remaining companies, they could more than adequately handle the loss of those 2 companies.
And you feel that the people in these neighborhoods are not going to get less fire protection?
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
The response will be enough to ensure their safety?
More than enough. The same thing that happened in Engine 8 on Chicago Street when we closed that. And the people are getting just as fine a protection now as they got before.
Have you had fires since they closed it?
Yes, we've had 2 fires in South Buffalo since they closed Engine 30, and the fire department had great difficulty at both fires. One was at 368 Marilla Street, and the other one was at 140 Tuscarora. And in both cases, the companies which responded to those fires had to come from a greater distance than they normally would have come, and as a result, I think there was greater damage to the homes.
Now, you had a fire out there just recently in the neighborhood. Was the response time from the other companies quite a difference?
That even got me burning even higher when I seen that. I believe the damage was estimated at $35,000. And I believe that Station 18 would have been open. We could have responded within 3-4 minutes sooner and probably lessened the damage, possibly to maybe about $8,000. And that would have been a good savings right there, at least as far as response. And luckily there was no one in the building, that no one was hurt, or no one was killed.
Now, many feel that the extra 2, 3, or maybe 4 minutes of response time may be critical.
I don't think that's the case, especially in the 2 we closed. Engine 30 has Engine 4 right around the corner, Engine 25 and Engine 35. With, certainly if there's a fire right next door to Engine 30 quarters, there's going to be a time lag, a minimum time lag. But anywhere out South Park Avenue or Abbott Road, Engine 4 can be there just as fast as 30 would have been.
There have been 7 recent fires in neighborhoods where firehouses have been closed down. Don't you feel that there would have been less damage if those firehouses were intact?
Well, I don't think so. I think in the case of South Buffalo, all 3 fires that we had out there since the closing of 30 were in Engine 4's first in district. And we all know that we're getting 3 engines to a fire and 2 trucks and the rescue, or the heavy-duty manpower squad and a battalion chief. And I think that South Buffalo is adequately covered.
I'm hoping that we can get something across to the people that they are being conned. But the problem is with the citizens, they will pay $20 to go to, say, Disneyland for a day of enjoyment, but it hurts them to pay $20 to protect their children's lives or their own lives.
Still another front, which is expected to produce much fireworks, is the upcoming showdown between the Griffin administration and Common Council Majority Leader James Keene in the City Hall chambers. The battle is over Keene's resolution dealing with the firehouse closings. Keene sponsored city charter amendments that would require a return to 25 engine companies in the fire department and given the council final authority over the number, location, and manning levels of fire units. And he is calling for the rolling back of the Buffalo utility tax to 1% on the grounds that the hike to 2% last May was based on no reduction of firehouses. Both bills have been referred to committees.
While I voted against the utility tax originally, I feel that before a decision such as this is made, that the council should be fully aware of what impact it would have in order to reduce the utility tax and in terms of layoffs, because I think that the consolidations and the moves that the mayor are making now, there are going to be a number of layoffs. I would like to know what impact the utility tax is going to have, and I think that if it goes to legislation or finance, there should be a full public airing of that.
You originally proposed for 2% utility tax, figuring that additional monies will be used for fire protection. Is that it?
That's right, and it's not being done.
What's happened to the money?
Well, I talked to the mayor in his office, and he told me that the added savings now are going to go to create a surplus so that when he goes down to Albany in the next budget and asks for money, that if Albany isn't good to him, he has something to fall back on. But that doesn't wash with me, and the reason it doesn't is that you're not going to be able to go down and tell legislators down in Albany that you need money when you have a surplus. They're not going to believe you. They're going to say, what's the poverty problem if you have a surplus? I was assured by Commissioner Planavsky that all vacancies would be filled on the fire and police departments if we increase the utility tax. I was assured by Commissioner Langdon, and by the way, Commissioners Langdon and Planavsky are spokespersons for the mayor during budget deliberations. I was assured by Commissioner Langdon that if the utility tax were enacted, there would be no firehouses closed. And I was assured publicly as well as privately. During budget hearings, the Commissioner Langdon made that statement before the body of the Common Council.
Councilman Keene is boiling mad because you promised no closings last May when he pushed for that 2% utility tax.
We didn't promise anybody anything.
He seems to think you promised.
Well, that's what Jimmy thinks what he wants to think.
Where did the monies go from this increase in taxes?
Where did the monies go?
Yeah, was this supposed to be for additional fire and police protection?
No, we kept it right at the level that it was before.
It seems to me that they're under the impression, Mr. Keene and company, that the monies gathered from this increase from 1 to 2% would assure the city of Buffalo that they'd have continued fire service and no closings, no cutbacks.
Best fire service in the country right now and the best police service in the country right now.
Is there a lack of communication somewhere?
No lack at all. That door's always open.
Well, he seems to feel that this is where the monies were supposed to be
I
spent.
can't help what Jimmy seems to feel.
The facts are that he comes in and he asks the council for a certain budget level, and he comes in and he asks for a certain tax increase with promises that a certain level of services are going to be delivered if that's done, and then he undoes that later. The real problem, of course, being, and it's going to be right around the corner, this real problem is that what's he going to say next year when he comes in? Who's going to believe the commissioners when they come in and they say, you have to provide me with a tax increase, you have to provide me with a certain budget, if you don't, I won't have this level of service. We're going to say we don't believe you anyway. Even if we provide the tax, even if we provide the budget, they're going to make cuts anyway and not come back to the council for permission.
Now, there's concern that you won't be credible next year when you promise certain levels of services in return for a tax increase.
Well, I've never lied to anybody, and that goes back to my days at St. Bridget's School. I learned that you don't lie, and my credibility has never been questioned.
It's being brought up now by
Well, that's
Mr. Keene.
Well, Jimmy knows better.
Your old buddies.
We're friends. We're going to disagree, and I hope he realizes that. Just because we're friends, that doesn't mean that we have to agree with each other 100% of the time. And if people think that way, then you're just kidding each other.
There is a resolution being proposed by Councilman Keene to roll back that to 1%. Are you in favor of that?
Definitely I am. Definitely I am. Because for one thing, I feel, like I said, the people don't mind paying a utility tax or whatever tax. if people get the services, and the main thing people want is to walk the street safe, or they want their homes protected as far as if it's fire occurrences or so forth. And I would definitely support the decrease in the utility tax from 2% to 1%.
If passed by the council, will you veto these measures?
Sure I will. Jimmy should realize that if he wants to keep that level of fire service the way he wants it, then you have to have more money. Repealing the 1% utility tax, it cost the city $4.7 million. So if you do that, where are you going to get the $4.7 million? That means there'll be more layoffs.
Look, I've been in the fire department. I was there 5 years. My brother is a battalion chief and has been on the department 20 years. I have another brother who's a lieutenant on the fire department. He's there 20 years. I had a brother killed in the line of service who was on the department 16 years at the time he was killed. My other brother, Dick, who's a state assemblyman, is on a leave of absence from the fire department. The Canes know the fire department. And I've talked to many, many chiefs and people of higher rank than the commissioner and longer experience than the commissioner. And they think he's crazy. They think closing these companies is a very, very foolish move, but nobody's asked them their opinion. And look, Fred Langdon didn't want to make this decision. Fred Langdon was told by the mayor that you'll make some cuts in the fire department, and he provided the companies. He identified which companies are going to go. But you can't tell me that any commissioner wants to live with those kind of cuts.
I would love to have 5 men on an engine company and 6 on a truck. It would be an ideal situation. I'd love to have a fire company on every corner, but we have to face realities, and this is the decisions we have to make when we're running a department.
With regard to the number of houses that have been demolished in the city, the reason that those houses have been demolished is because they were on fire. 1,500 houses over the last 4 years have been demolished in the city of Buffalo. Virtually every one of them saw a fire, and that's why they were demolished. The facts are that this city's burning down, and we're decreasing fire protection. I don't say we, the mayor's decreasing fire protection, and it shouldn't be done. We need to at least hold our own.
I believe the city's contention is that thousands have moved out of Buffalo and several structures have been demolished, yet those that I've talked to and the councilmen feel that in their neighborhoods, especially where the 2 firehouses were closed, the reason those buildings are demolished is because they're burned.
Well, we, the city, in the 4 years I've been mayor, we have demolished 2,900 homes in the city of Buffalo. I've been saying it was 1,500 until I just got the report from Matt Baudo yesterday for the 4-year report. 2,900 homes were demolished. And as you mentioned, we lost 80,000 people between 1970 and 1980. So when you put those 2 things together, you have to realize that the fire protection that we have is probably more than enough.
But out of these demolished buildings, I wonder how many of them were arson fires.
Oh, there was quite a few of them. But you also have to realize that the city of Buffalo has the best arson conviction rate in the country. So we're doing a pretty good job on some of these bums who've been torching their homes for profit. And, you know, these are things that all went into the consideration of closing these 2 houses.
Still, another battlefield pitting the city and the firefighters union was Supreme Court. When Captain Joseph Procato of Ladder Truck 9 refused to work as an acting battalion chief, he was suspended for 30 days. The union obtained a show-cause order linking a 3-year-old court order barring fire officials from forcing firefighters to work in jobs not covered by their formal titles.
No, that wasn't the court order at all. The court order was a particular order, and it was based on several men in the department that were on list, and the department wasn't filling vacancies at the time. We had just gotten in office, and there was dialogue about reorganization at that period of time. And the 2 lists were going to die in October, and they brought a court order that we should fill the vacancies. These were permanent, these were vacancies over a period of time. Captain Procato refused a temporary assignment, which is covered both in our contract and it's covered in Section 61.
The city just likes to interpret the law any way they want to interpret it at their convenience. First of all, the deputy made an illegal suspension. You just don't suspend and give a sentence out. It's like someone committing murder. You don't say, give him the chair and then later we'll have the trial. So that's what the deputy did. Because he was perfused by the refusal, he just says, I'm going to suspend you for 30 days. He doesn't have that right. He doesn't have any right. And now what they're in here trying to do is to correct their wrongness.
Well, Judge Doyle reserved decision on our application to punish the city for contempt. We indicated that although technically we were there to seek punishment for contempt, what we really want is that the city comply with Judge Sedita's decision a couple of years ago, and we'll be happy.
Do you feel that the court order was violated?
I don't think there's any question about it, Fran. I think at that time we made it clear that what was going on were that individuals were being forced to take out-of-title assignments or be punished. That's exactly what's happening in the last week or two. Firefighters are being told they have to assume positions of high responsibility, run the risk of their performance while in those titles, or if they refuse them, they'll be suspended like Captain Picado was.
A victory for the union came late yesterday when Justice Doyle ruled that Picado was within his rights to refuse working out of title because no emergency existed at the time. If the city doesn't appeal, he will be reinstated. What are your feelings on the proposal to shrink the ranks of the battalion chiefs?
I think it's dangerous, extremely dangerous. One thing that you've got to understand about fighting a fire is that you need supervision at that fire. Battalion chiefs provide that supervision. They're like a general in the field of battle. They bring all the companies together and give the orders out. When you're going to fight a fire, each company has its own work to do, and they need a general who's a battalion chief to tell them what to do. And what's going to happen now with less battalion chiefs spread around the city, it's going to really reduce the amount of supervision in a fire. I think it's critical. I don't support it at all.
A battalion chief is probably the most important function of a fire. This man knows his area, his battalion. He knows where flammable liquids are stored. He knows different structures of construction. When he pulls up to a fire, he knows if, say, a 2.5-story frame has fire stops in it. He can tell by the construction of the house of how it's built. He also knows many times, or more time in advance, how many times a building, say, had arson, 2 or 3 fires to it. He should know his district better than anybody. He does make these inspections.
This is a management decision. We feel that breaking the city in a 5-part section, the chiefs can adequately cover them. Also, I took the chiefs off the answering false alarms, so that'll reduce their calls by, well, 10,000 divided by 5 now. And I feel that with them doing their administrative duties and with the less running on false alarms, they have plenty of time, and I think I'll be proven right that in the years to come, that 5 battalions will adequately cover the city.
Why reduce the ranks of battalion chiefs?
Because we don't need them.
Now, the union contends that a battalion chief is probably the most important man at a fire.
Baloney.
Well, he inspects the buildings. He knows which buildings have been weakened from previous arson fires. He knows where all the stands are.
The captain should be able to do the same thing. We got too many chiefs and not enough Indians. That's why I want to get rid of some of the battalion chiefs as well as some police inspectors. We had, just going to the police department for a minute, we had 1,400 men. Years ago, we had 2 inspectors. Now we got 1,000 men and we got 9 inspectors. We don't need them. We don't need battalion chiefs.
What about your decision to dismantle 800 fire call boxes?
Best thing going. Other cities have done it before us. It's going to save an awful lot of false alarms. The first box we took out was in the Maston district. In 1 year, that 1 box alone had 131 false alarms. And that cost a couple $100 every time an engine goes out on a false alarm. The cities that already closed or eliminated fire alarm boxes, San Francisco, Rochester, Denver, Chicago, Syracuse, Jersey City, Salt Lake City, and Culver City. So we're not the first one to do it.
But the most serious problem I foresee with this is Buffalo has always been proud of its ethnic background. We are probably one of the most heaviest ethnic populated cities in the world. We have the Poles, the Italians, the Hispanics, and whatever. A lot of these people can't speak English. And are they schooled enough to go to a telephone and how to report a fire? Under their excitement, if they did get on a telephone, would they be able to speak clear enough to tell the dispatcher where the fire is? And my second concern is, with the problems we're having in some of our inner cities, streets, is how many people would open their doors at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and let someone in that was frantically screaming at the door that they want to call the fire department or something. They wouldn't know if it's someone putting on an act just to get into the house. So there's going to be problems, and I don't think these rash decisions should just be made.
I think that over the years, everybody realized what a problem they have been. And it seems that even though we've taken some of the boxes out, that the real pain in the neck boxes where we were responding 10 and 12 times a night, the alarms are still increased. The false alarms are still increased. And instead of going to the boxes that we pulled out, they go elsewhere and down the street or what have you. Now, wear and tear on the apparatus. We have 1 man killed. There's several men injured going to false alarms, and it just doesn't make sense to have it there.
What you've got now is a fire alarm system that really exists for the guy who pulls the false alarm. And as you know, when a fire company is on a call for a false alarm, it is not available for the real McCoy. And with the elimination of the fireboxes, you will now have companies in service for when the real fire occurs.
Who should have the final authority over the location, the number of fire pieces, and manning levels of the fire units? The city administrators, common council?
At one point, I used to feel that the city should. But now I'm beginning to feel just the opposite. After this occurrence that happened just now, I think that the council should have the authority to, as long as we're putting the money into the budget, I think we should have control of the fire department and the police departments, you know, as far as putting money in or what protection we're getting.
What kind of support do you have in the council on the rollback of the utility tax to 1%?
I think the councilmen are being very, very cautious. We're going to have a public hearing with regard to how that might damage the revenues due to the city. Now, maybe we won't roll it back to 1%. Maybe we'll just roll it back the amount of money that was saved in the closing of the fire companies. You know, if there's really been a savings in regard to the firehouses, if there's been a $1 million savings or a $2 million savings, maybe we ought to roll that particular portion back. I say that you don't tax people for a service, for a phantom service. If you're going to tax them for a service, give them the service. If later on you decide to cut the service, give them their money back.
And the people have to realize that in time to come, maybe not in the next 3 or 4 years, but maybe we'll have to make some other changes. Because we have to do with the money that we have and the things that are coming from Washington right now. The city of Buffalo has $30 million as of October 1st when the new federal budget went into effect. And now he's talking about giving food stamps back to the states. He's talking about these service cuts that he's going to be making, and the guy that's going to be realizing this are the guys in local government. So the people have to realize, in order to keep our heads above water, we have to economize. And that might be to say, we're not going to Reaganize, we're going to economize.